Yes, I've always had domestic violence in my life. As a kid growing up, not really knowing, I thought sometimes that it was okay. I thought that the abuse was part of love. I was, dating a guy and, we were arguing and then the arguing led to a smack in the face for me. And I've been hit in the face with a chair and have marks from it. And, police was always being called, people scared, hair pulled all out. I was just used to the hitting, so it was hitting and things like that. I didn't know that I was actually being abused, like physically and mentally and emotionally, and Back then, I didn't understand or know anything about those types of abuse. I really just pretty much kept it to myself unless it was brought out and I had to say something. I was hospitalized a couple times, by myself alone because I didn't want to tell nobody. So, that was kind of hard, but, I thought certain things was okay and that's why I dealt with it. A few times we were homeless. A few times we were living in motel rooms, and that was very stressful. And that was when a lot of abuse happened because, I don't know. I mean, mainly it was his fault, but that we were there. But being there and just in a room with me, him, and 7 kids, I guess it got frustrating for him, so he would take it out on me, and it was bad. One day, years ago, I had 2 kids. I had just had my son, and he was maybe about 5, 6 months, and we had a disagreement, and he was drunk and maybe on drugs at the time, and that intensified it. And I mean, he choked me to the point where I passed out, and I had a daughter. She was like 2 years old, maybe two, maybe not quite two yet. And, she was crying and screaming and singing. And, I just remember getting up off the ground. I didn't even know that I had blacked out until, I like woke up on the ground and then he was still like on top of me. So, I think that was a hard thing for her to see. He paid half, I paid half, of everything. But then he would make sure that, I knew that, pretty much it was still all his. He would really like take my money and do what he wanted to do with it. So sometimes he would pay the bills or rent, and I would think he really was until the landlord came and said, "Oh, you're evicted," for non-payment of rent. And I'm like, well, what happened there? I think one time, my daughter's teacher, we had just moved into a place and we didn't have anything. And he promised and promised he was gonna get furniture, get beds, and get this and get that. And my daughter, I think that maybe she went to school and talked to a counselor, and I received a call from a counselor, and she just wanted to talk to me, and she was like, "Yeah, we just heard you just moved in, and you don't have anything, so they wanted to help." And when I tell you they helped, they furnished my whole 4-bedroom house and then some stuff like from toiletries to food. Oh, he hated that. He hated that. He really hated that because it was somebody doing something for just me. And that night, yeah, he let me know he didn't like it. So, yeah, anytime somebody tried to help, he didn't like it. So, he made sure I knew he didn't like it.
Conditions matter tremendously on a kid's success. And so instead of looking at a kid and thinking, hey, why are you struggling? What's wrong with you? We have the platform for a real change in thinking. Hey, maybe the conditions aren't right for this student. So I remember one in particular. I was called into the case because this child was really struggling. He had some academic deficits. He also had significant kind of behavioral challenges that were putting him at risk of a different placement. And the teacher wasn't understanding that. This is willful defiance, and he's choosing to act like this. And I knew that his mom had just had a child over Christmas break, and there were a number of siblings. And so I asked him, I said, hey, buddy, how's your baby brother doing? And he shared, and the baby was young. This baby's mean because he just cries and screams all the time, and he just got, his first whooping. And I kind of in that moment looked and thought, wow, that was your upbringing too, which was the root of your issues. And it's important to say here, I knew that his mom loved her children and him and was doing the best she could. And in that moment, I really saw she too, was a product of too much unbuffered adversity, and she was doing the best she could to survive.
And by me calling the police so many times, they said that it wasn't safe for my kids to be with me. Instead of helping me and getting me out of a situation that I was in, they took my kids. A whole year. I had to do classes, he had to do classes, and every time he had to go to an anger management class or every time he had to go to a child class, it was bad for me. You got me doing this stupid stuff because you want to call the police. Well, I'm calling the police because you're putting your hands on me, or it's to the point where, you're about to put your hands on me, or you're breaking in the house, or you're just doing crazy things. So it was all my fault, though, that the kids were gone. So I was scared. I was scared to talk. I was scared to tell what was really going on. So if either one of the law or authorities would have came to me and sat me down and talked and told me it was going to be okay if I say tell what's going on and get me away from them, then I'm sure I would have. But I always ended up having to be back with him, or he'd come back to the house after he's been arrested. I mean, he was allowed to come back, and I was scared, and he had my whole mind. I can't explain how it was, but he was really good at what he did. He always talked for me if we were at the hospital. He always talked for me, even when they took my kids. And one of the ladies, she was a DCF lady, and she's like, well, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to her. Can she talk for herself? And when she said that, I kind of smiled and looked, and he was just giving me this eye, so she seen the control, but I still, at that time, I wouldn't tell her because I don't know if she sat me down one-on-one and tried to really dig. It was mainly about the kids, it was mainly about the kids and how were we gonna get along to get the kids back. It was never about how are you doing? Do you really want to stay with him? Or it was never about me. He didn't really like me working. I mean, it was always a problem because he didn't want me to know anybody. He didn't want me to talk to anybody, just him and his family. So if I was on a job and I really liked it and I talked about it, then I couldn't go back the next day because, what are you doing there? Or he was always at every break, even 10-minute breaks, just sitting out in the parking lot, just waiting and looking for 8 hours, so that was embarrassing.
If the individual will let their employer know, employers can be proactive in ensuring that the respondent or the abuser is not on site with the facility. They can make sure that they get back and forth to their cars safely. They can give them maybe designated parking places that are near the building to get in and out of quickly. They should know that if the abuser comes on site, they maybe need to hide the victim and call the police. So there's a lot they can do. A lot of times it's just asking, what can I do for you?
I've been to the abuse shelters. He had talked me right on up out of them. Actually, he would come and park in the parking lot next to the shelter and stay there all night and call and talk to me all night just to get me out of there, just to come back home, do this. I promise I'll be a good man. This, and I fell for it every time.
Yeah, it takes about 7 times before they leave at that final time, so most of them go back. And we expect that. So when they come in, we know that. So we know that we can try our best to get them on their feet and a job and a house and all these things that they can live on their own and be independent. And we know they're probably going to go back, so we don't hold it against them. And when they come back that second time at the shelter, we just start all over again.
I knew I wanted to leave, but just didn't know how. I was like in a deep depression this last time for 2 years, like in the bed. I mean, my kids was, you always in the bed. They didn't know what was wrong with me, you know. I never told a soul, never told anything. When I bought my car, that's when he kind of knew that I had the money, but at that time, you couldn't stop me now. My head is straight and I'm getting out of here, you know. I was trying to figure out how I was gonna leave. So one night he went to a club, and at like 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke my kids up and I said, get in the car, let's go, we gotta go. And that's how we left. We took like maybe 3 bags with us. I haven't returned since. So once I got here and I felt freedom and I was breathing on my own, I knew there was no way I can go back, even if I wanted to get some things, because I knew I would get trapped there again. So after that, something just happened to me, and I just wanted to talk about it. And the best way for me, because I've been writing for a long time, but I never actually wrote a book. I like writing poetry. So that was the way for me to self-heal myself, to get it out, and that's what I did.